Welcome to the MOOCs course Mechanical Unit Operations. The title of this lecture is Cross Flow Filtration. In previous couple of lectures, what we have seen working principles of cake filtration and then different industrial equipment for cake filtration. Now in this lecture we will be discussing a few details about the cross flow filtration and then what are the equipment used, and then working principles of a few cross flow filtration processes would be discussed in this and then coming lecture. So, what is cross flow filters? As we have already seen in the basics of filtration process, cross flow filtration where we have a kind of a membrane as a kind of a filter medium, right. So, this membrane may be having a kind of a porous structure, which may be a kind of almost channel kind of structure, or which may be having a kind of a connecting porous structure, something like this as shown here, right. So, some of the channels or openings are also connected to the other porous openings. Some are independently just whatever the way they are coming, just passing out without any interconnection with the other porous. So, these kind of membranes are in general used as a kind of filter medium for cross flow filters. And then cake filtration, we have seen they are in general used for the coarse and large amount of solids, whichever the slurries or suspensions we take, in general they have a coarse particles and large amount of solids should be there, then we usually use the cake filtration. But cross flow filtration we do especially when small amount of fine particles are there in the slurry, then we use cross flow filtrations, because small amount but the particles are fine, very small size particles if they are existing in the suspension. If you use the cake filtration for such kind of slurries where small amount but fine particles are there, these fine particles, if they are allowed to form a kind of cake, then they will be forming a kind of a almost kind of dense layer of particles, which may not allow further permeation to take place once that layer is formed. So, almost a kind of thin impermeable layer will be formed because of this very fine slimy particles, right. Because of such problems of using such kind of solutions where small particles, fine particles are there in less amount, that is the problem of using the cake filtration. So, because in order to avoid such kind of problems, we use cross flow filtration process for such kind of solutions where small amount of particles would be there and their size would also be very fine, like few micron particle sizes or something like that, right. And then these processes are will not separate the slurry into the almost two independent pure phases, like a pure filtrate or pure permeate, and then almost like pure solids like cake, as we have seen in a kind of cake filtration. Such kind of separation is not possible here in this cross flow filtration. Here in the cross flow filtration, whatever the suspension containing fine particles are there, they are allowed to flow across the membrane surface at high velocities. So, what happens, whatever the fine particles are there, they will be separated or they will be formed a kind of deposited on the surface of the membrane like this, okay, as shown in the picture. And then what happens, whatever the permeate, clear permeate or almost clear permeate is there, that will be collected as a kind of a filtrate from the bottom like this, right. So, but the particles whatever are forming or being deposited on the filter medium or membrane surface are not allowed to build up as a kind of cake because of the high velocity of the suspension. Suspension is allowed in general at high velocity, right. And then so whatever the high concentrate retentate is there, that is collected as a concentrated suspension in the other direction, okay, in the on the other side of the membrane. So, that is how we do in general in a cross flow filtration. So, basically it is used for slurries or solutions where we are having a small amount of particles, but their size is very small, like in some microns or something like that. Then only we use this kind of cross flow filtration, or then only if we use cross flow filtration the process would be efficient, okay. And other point to remember, in this process we do not get almost kind of pure phases like almost kind of solids as a cake, and then pure liquid as a kind of permeate that whatever we get cake filtration, such kind of thing we do not get. We get almost kind of a pure filtrate depending on the membrane and then process conditions, but other phase would be a kind of a concentrated suspension. It will not be a kind of a only highly loaded particles like like cake. It is not a kind of cake but highly concentrated suspension, whereas the feed suspension is a low concentrated suspension. Right. The same process pictorially we can also represent as a kind of the other way here as shown here. Here only thing that we have a kind of two membranes, right. So, between these two membranes the low concentration solution, whatever the low concentration solution having the fine particles is allowed to flow across this membrane surface in the parallel direction as shown here in this picture, and then whatever the permeate is there, that will be that is the clear liquid passing through membrane, that will be collected as a kind of a permeate as shown here, and then concentrated suspension whatever is there, that will be collected as a kind of a retentate as shown here, right. So, now it is applied for concentrating suspensions of fine particles or colloidal material or to fractionate solutions of macromolecules. That is the main purpose of a cross flow filtration, where membranes are used as a kind of a filter medium. Feed suspension flows under pressure at fairly high velocity across the filter medium in cross flow filters. So, the thin layer of solids may form on the surface of medium, but high liquid velocity whatever being maintained, that will not allow these particles to build up as a kind of cake. So, cake formation would not be there because of this high velocity of a feed liquid, okay, that will be carrying away particles along the flow direction because of the high velocity. That is the reason pictorially also we can see in the retentate side here in this picture more particles are there compared to the other sides, because more particles are being carried in the flow direction as a kind of retentate because of the high velocity of the feed, whatever feed that we have taken. Okay. So, we understand these membranes are a kind of filter medium for this cross flow filtration. So, what kind of membranes are in general used? Usually ceramic, metal or polymer membranes are used. These membranes should have a kind of pores small enough to exclude most of the suspended particles when these membranes are used as a kind of filter medium. Okay. Then portion of liquid passes through medium as a clear filtrate as I mentioned, leaving more concentrated suspension as a retentate. Okay. So, separation of these suspensions or the separation of these liquids into two individual pure phases, almost pure phases is not possible here. Okay. One, you get almost clear liquid kind of thing having very small or negligible particles as a kind of filtrate or permeate you will get, whereas the other phase would be concentrated suspension, which is known as the retentate in membrane terminology. Example, ultrafilter is a cross flow unit consisting of membrane with extremely small openings used for separation and concentration of colloidal particles and large molecules. Okay. Now, after realizing this cross flow filtration would take place only if you have a kind of a membrane as a kind of filter medium, it is important to know basics of membranes. What is membrane, what kind of driving forces are there, what kind of properties of membranes that are going to affect the separation process, and then different types of membranes available, how the membranes are prepared, and then what kind of modules available. In general, industrially you need to have a kind of large surface area membrane. So, then how you can have a kind of continuous process using this membrane process etc., different modules etc., those kind of things we are going to discuss in this particular lecture, because now the membrane is a kind of filter medium here. Membranes are semi-permeable barriers in which separation of two or more distinct species occur in presence of one or combinations of driving forces. So, you take a membrane, now you allow a kind of suspension or the solution to flow through this membrane. So, then depending on the porous structure of the membrane, permeate will pass through and then particles would be retained. So, this membrane separation processes are in general can be dead end as well as the cross flow filtration also. We will be discussing only cross flow filtration. Dead end, that is across the surface of the filter medium, that membrane surface, that is known as a kind of dead end filtration or membrane separation. Let us say this is a membrane separation, the solution will come in this direction and then permeate will be passing through, particles would be or high concentrated retentant would be retained on the membrane surface like that. So, this is a dead end process, but we are taking only cross flow processes only, and then these membranes are in general a kind of a semi-permeable barriers where they selectively allow one or two species to pass through and then other species retain, they will not allow to pass through the barrier, right. So, how this separation would occur? Though these membranes are semi-permeable and then selective to a specific species, they will allow only those species, the other species they will not allow, but there should be a kind of driving force for such kind of separation to occur as well. So, what kind of driving forces are used in general? There are several types of driving forces are there. These driving forces may be used as individually or in combination of several driving forces in general used depending on the applications. So, such as like pressure gradient, concentration gradient, temperature gradient, electrical potential gradient, partial pressure etc. are used in general as a kind of a driving force for the separation to occur using these semi-permeable membranes. Okay. Now, these membranes in general can be solid or liquid membranes. Solid membranes can be organic or inorganic membranes. Organic membranes are something like polymeric membranes, inorganic membranes are something like carbon membrane etc. are used. Okay. Then liquid membranes are also available. Then membrane processes classification based on the driving force. As we have seen, the separation is occurring based on the type of driving force applied. So, it is possible that when a particular type of driving force is applied, so whatever the membrane processes are there, they may be designated as a kind of or named as a kind of certain types of membrane processes. So, based on the driving forces, how we can classify these membrane forces, that we are going to see now here. So, let us say pressure is a driving force for the separation to occur through this semi-permeable membrane. Then we have a microfiltration, ultrafiltration, nanofiltration and reverse osmosis coming into this category. If we have a concentration gradient as a driving force, then we have a dialysis, permeation, gas separation etc. Those kind of things are coming into the these kind of processes where concentration gradient is driving force. If electrical potential is driving force, then electrodialysis, electroosmosis, electrophoresis etc. will come into this category. If you have temperature gradient as a driving force for the separation, then membrane distillation kind of processes would come into the picture under this category, right. And then as already mentioned, it is not necessary that only one type of driving force is only required for a given surprise. It is possible that for a given surprise, it is also possible in general for a given separation process more than one driving force is also applied. Let us say vapor permeation or gas separation mixtures in general, not only the concentration gradient, but the pressure gradient would also be acting as a kind of driving force. Similarly, like in membrane distillation, it is not necessary that only temperature gradient is acting as a kind of driving force, but in addition to that one there may be a kind of a concentration gradient as well as the pressure gradient as well, right. Now, membrane preparation, how to prepare these membranes? There are different methods of preparing membranes. We will not be going to see all the details because membranes itself is a kind of, our membrane separation technology itself a kind of a separate subject in general for chemical engineering students. So, we cannot cover all the details in one or two lectures. So, we will be discussing only a few details. So, one of the membrane preparation technique I am discussing here, though there are many other types of membrane preparation techniques are there. Okay. So, this technique that I am discussing here is known as the phase inversion technique or immersion precipitation technique. Here what happens, let us say you are preparing a kind of polymeric membrane. So, that for that polymer you have to find out non-solvent as well as the solvent, because polymer you cannot use as it is a kind of precursor for membrane preparation. It has to be made a kind of solution. So for that you have to find out a solvent. So you take 5%, 10% or 15% polymer in that solvent and prepare a polymer solution. Depending on the thickness of the membrane, porous structure of the membrane, you have to decide how much percentage of polymer solution has to be taken. And you should also find out a kind of non-solvent for that kind of polymer, right. So let us say you have found a kind of non-solvent for a polymeric membrane that you are preparing. So that you take in a kind of container here like this, right, and then into that one you what you do, you dip a polyurethane foam, something like this as shown here. So you are dipping here. The polyurethane foam is a kind of having a macroporous structure, highly porous structure you are having here in this urethane foam like in general. So then what happened, all the porous structure of this foam would be occupied by the non-solvent, because of the diffusion. So initially there is no non-solvent in the porous structure of the foam. Then when it is dipped in the container in which non-solvent is there, that porous structure of the foam would be occupied by the non-solvent, right. Now on to this foam, what you take a support, like you are let us say you are preparing a supported membrane, right. The support is in general macroporous structure again, but as a porous structure, the size of the pores are much smaller compared to the porous structure of the whatever the foam, polyurethane foam that you have taken. So compared to that one, the porous structure of this support is very small, right. The pore sizes are small here, right. So now when you keep this support on this one, so support different types of supports are there. Let us say clay support, right. You have a clay support that you are keeping on this surface of this foam. Then whatever the pores are there within the support, the pores initially they are empty, right, are occupied by some gases or something like that, or vapor, something like that. So those would be replaced by the non-solvent. So because that support has been kept on a kind of foam whose pores are already occupied by the non-solvent. So now that non-solvent would permeate or occupy the porous structure of this support, right. Now the support is now on a foam. Now the support pores of this support, macroporous support, is also occupied by the non-solvent, right. On to this surface, support surface, now what you do, you take a definite amount of a solution, whatever the polymer solution that you prepared, 10% or 15% polymer solution that you prepared, you measure a definite amount as per the requirement of the thickness of the membrane membrane as well as the porous structure of the membrane. That solution you pour on the surface and then spread it like this. When you spread it, and then after spreading it, you just leave it for air drying kind of thing, right. In general air drying is done. It can be done at it's a kind of better process, so that slow evaporation of the solvent will take place. Slowly, whatever the solvent that you have taken to make this polymer solution, slowly that will start evaporating, and then the polymer layer whatever that you have formed by the solution of the polymer solution, whatever the layer that you have formed, gradually as time progresses, the solvents will keep evaporating, and then because of that evaporation there will be a kind of porous structure would be formed on the surface of the the support. On the support, now the polymer layer is there. On that layer there will be porous structure would be will be developed depending on the degree of evaporation of the solvent from this layer. So once all the solvent is evaporated, that polymer layer would almost be dried kind of thing, and then that once dried polymer layer is formed on a kind of support, then that can be taken and then further dried in a kind of oven at lower temperature, like 50 degrees centigrade or 40 degrees centigrade, like that, depending on the temperature sensitivity of the polymer. Okay, then that is how the membrane is prepared by this phase inversion technique, right. So, then why this non-solvent solvent is required here? If you do not take the non-solvent and then if you do not allow the porous structure of the clay support to be filled or occupied by non-solvent, whatever the polymer solution is there, that that will go inside the porous structure of the macroporous and then that will block the pores, rather than having a kind of membranes with a proper porous structure. If you do not take this non-solvent, that polymer solution will go inside the porous structure of the support and then the whatever the macroporous structure of the support is there across the length, that will be occupied by the polymer solution and then even that support will become non-porous. So, that is the reason this non-solvent is there. If the macroporous structure of the support is already occupied by the non-solvent, then even if the polymer solution try to come in, that will not able to dissolve because the porous structure is already occupied by the non-solvent. Okay. So, then because of that one, the blocking of this will not take place, and then as once this polymer solution whatever is there, that solvent is evaporated, then gradually the when you take out and then keep it outside of the foam, the support whatever the inside the support porous structure of the support whatever the non-solvent is there, that will also gradually evaporating and then that will also induce some kind of porous structure in the membrane surface. Okay. While these molecules of solvent or non-solvent are crossing through the polymer layer, they will form a kind of small pore structure. So, this is how kind of membranes are prepared by immersion phase inversion technique or immersion precipitation technique. There are many other methods or may also be available, right. We are not going into all the details. This I have given just a kind of information so that you know how to prepare the membranes in general. Now, we understand that membrane, the properties of membrane are definitely going to show a kind of effect on the separation process, because depending on the nature of the membrane, depending on charges etc. there on the surface, definitely the some of the properties even depending on the porous structure, how narrow pore sizes are there or how wide range of pore structures are there, depending on that one also the separation process is going to be affected. So, what we understand from these couple of examples, definitely some of the properties are going to affect the separation of whatever the mixture that we have taken. So, what are those membrane properties which may affect this separation process that we see now, right. Chemical nature, whether organic or inorganic membrane, that is going to have a kind of influence. Then nature of pore opening, microporous, homogeneous, non-porous or symmetric, asymmetric, charged surface, membrane surface etc. or membrane openings are also charged etc. Those kind of things are going to have a kind of influence, that is nature of pore opening. Then presence of charges, if at all in general some membranes are naturally having some kind of functional groups on the surface, or in general artificially by chemically reacting, the membrane surfaces are made to have a kind of charges, or some kind of functional groups will be attached to the membrane surface through chemical reaction. So that through those functional groups the membrane surface will attain some kind of charges, so which can be useful in charge separation kind of thing, or separation based on the charges wherever it is. Under such condition, this membranes with charge on the surface can be used. So, that is also going to show effect. And degree of asymmetry, whether the membrane is symmetric or asymmetry, that is again going to be have a kind of a role. If it is asymmetry, what is the degree of asymmetry, that is also going to be important. We are going to see what is this asymmetric membrane in very soon now. So, then membrane filters, how to classify them. Membrane separation depends upon nature of driving force that we have seen. So, for a given type of separation, you need to find the appropriate nature of driving force. Accordingly, you have to do. If only one driving force is required, if more than one driving force is required, so then what are the other kind of driving forces that you have to identify, and accordingly you apply. So, that is nature of driving force that is going to have a kind of a effect, or membrane separation is going to depend on nature of driving force, such as pressure gradient as already seen, temperature gradient, concentration gradient, electrical potential gradient, etc. Then nature of mixture to be separated, whether the gaseous mixture or liquid solutions, what are we separating, that also have a kind of influence on membrane separation process. And then types of membranes used, different types of membrane processes, different types of membranes are used, like sometimes symmetric membranes are good, sometimes asymmetric membranes are good, like that composite, microporous, ion exchange, microporous, charged membranes, etc. are available. So, what type of membrane are we using, that is also going to be have a kind of a significant role in the membrane separation process. So, the selection of membrane is very essential. Then sometimes applications oriented also, you have to select appropriate membranes for a proper performance. So, that is application is also going to have a kind of a effect for a given membrane separation process. Okay. Let us say you take a membrane which is more suitable for a kind of microfiltration or ultrafiltration, but such membrane if you are using for reverse osmosis, the performance may not be good enough. Okay. So, application oriented also, this membrane separation is going to be affected by the application. Something like clarification, sterile filtration, if you have to do, it is better to use microfiltration membranes. Then if you want to separate macromolecules, then ultrafiltration is better, and then accordingly you have to choose a kind of membrane. If you want to separate small organic components and selected salts from solution, then membranes which are more suitable for nanofiltration should be used. If you want to separate microsolutes and salts from solution, then reverse osmosis based membranes are better. Like that, keep on listing. If you have a gas permeation is the kind of mechanism that is leading to the separation for gas mixtures, then gas permeation process and corresponding membrane should be used. Like that, application is going to be a kind of very much important factor, which is leading to the which is deciding the membrane separation process. In this lecture, we will be discussing only those membrane separation processes which are based on the pressure gradient driving force. Why? Because whatever the filtration, those things we have been seeing, we are primarily considering only the pressure based or vacuum based or centrifugal force based filtration processes only we have consider, or which are better for a given filtration process. So, membranes, there are several types of driving forces are there, but for cross flow filtration where membranes we are using, there pressure based separation processes are essential, and then those pressure based separation processes only we are going to discuss in this particular lecture. Okay. So, what are these pressure driven membrane separation processes, which we have already seen, like microfiltration, ultrafiltration, nanofiltration, reverse osmosis, which is also known as the hyperfiltration. So, we are going to see a few details of these membrane processes only. Pressure driven membrane separation process are discussed primarily here, not only because of the restrictions, but also because of their established because they are well established industrial level, especially in large scale industrial processes. These pressure based membrane separation processes are well established. So, that is the other reason that we are primarily concentrating here, pressure driven membrane separation processes. So, like some examples where these industrial applications have been done. So, we all know that reverse osmosis is used for desalination of brackish water. Many of the water purifying units in general we used at our household applications are also based on the reverse osmosis or ultrafiltration in general. ultrafiltration in paints, right? Paint plants, like car industries are there, or car industries, are body parts of the car in general colored with different kinds of paints, right? So when you do this painting, a large amount of paint goes waste, and then that paint has to be washed out, right? So by using these ultrafiltration membranes, when you separate that whatever the wash liquid is there after washing the car, you can save up to 30% paint usage by using this ultrafiltration membrane. Whatever the clear or almost clear water that has been recovered from the wash water can be reused as a kind of wash water by recycling it. Okay, that is the other applications. Then in dairy industries, this reverse osmosis and ultrafiltrations are very famously used in many of these dairy industries. Nanofiltrations are very much used in pharmaceutical processing industries. Electrodialysis for desalination or concentration of brackish water is also used, and then hemodialysis of patients with renal failure, etc. Like that, if you keep on listing, there are n number of applications are there where these pressure driven membrane separation processes are well established. So now we see one by one details of these pressure driven membrane separation processes. Microfiltration is pressure driven separation in which flow through membrane approach is used to separate micron size particles from fluids. The particle size in general 0.5 to 10 microns, right. When we have such kind of particles, in general people may think that cake filtration may also be used, but as I already mentioned, when you have such smaller particles, they may be forming a kind of almost impervious dense layer on the filter medium or the membrane surface, which will not allow further permeation to take place or further separation to take place, right. That is the reason these solutions where having such small particles, we do not use any kind of cake filtration processes, rather we go for cross flow filtration processes using one of the processes that we are going to discuss. If the particle size is in general between 0.5 to 10 microns, then it is better to go with the microfiltration with a pressure difference or pressure gradient having less than 0.5 atmosphere. Some applications are given here, like bacteria, separation of bacteria, paint, pigment, yeast cells, etc. from solutions. On the other hand, ultrafiltration covers wider size range from 0.5 micron particles down to molecules as small as 10 power minus 3 microns. Whereas the nanofiltrations are used for separation of small molecules or ions, separation of large molecules may be achieved by the same nanofiltration where the screening action takes place by using a kind of nanofiltration membranes with very small pores. In general, nanofiltration membranes are used, or nanofiltration separation processes are used to separate very small molecules or ions. But such membranes, if we used for solutions having large molecules, then the separation will take place by a kind of screening action. Reverse osmosis would apply to separations when especially the osmotic pressures has a kind of major effect on the flux. Something like purification of salt water by reverse osmosis takes place by a solution diffusion mechanism in the dense polymer layer. So now we see classification of membrane processes for liquid systems. So what are the processes, what are the size range of the separation size range, and then what is the pressure gradient, what are the some applications, those kind of things we are going to see now in a kind of tabular column. Now here we can see if you have a kind of microfiltration process, then driving force is a pressure gradient, and then particle size range is in general 10 to 0.1 microns. Examples where they are used are something like separation of small particles, large colloids, microbial cells, etc. Then microfiltrations are used. When you have a ultrafiltration membrane, then pressure gradient is again driving force. The range of pressure difference is 0.5 to 10 atmosphere. and then they are better suitable for separation size range if it is less than 0.1 microns to as low as 5 nanometers. Examples are emulsions, colloids, macromolecules, protein separation from solutions. If you have a nanofiltration, then again the pressure gradient is a kind of driving force, and then the pressure drop is in general 10 to 25 atmospheres. Okay. They are used if the separation size range is approximately of nanometer size. Examples are a kind of dissolved salts, organics, etc. Then reverse osmosis or hyperfiltration, if you have, there also pressure gradient is the driving force, but the pressure drop is as high as 25 to 135 atmosphere, used for separation size range less than nanometer size. It is beneficial for separating dissolved salts, small organics, etc. Electrodialysis, if the process is the electrodialysis, then electric field gradient is a kind of a driving force, good for separating the molecules or particles of size less than 5 nanometers, better for separation of dissolved salts from the solution. If you have a dialysis, then concentration gradient is the major driving force, then this is good for separating particles less than 5 nanometer size. Examples, treatment of renal failure patients, right. So, now what types of membranes are used? For different processes, different types of membranes are used. So, all these classifications are a kind of arbitrary kind of thing, and then even if someone wanted to do classification, this classification has to be done with respect to a particular property, right. So, let us say if you doing kind of for process oriented classification of membranes, if you wanted to do, then how to do. So, let us start with the cross flow filtration, because we are discussing about the cross flow filtration. For cross flow filtration, ideal membrane should have a high porosity and narrow pore size distribution, and then largest pores should be slightly smaller than the particles or molecules that are to be separated. And then for such kind of cross flow filtration, asymmetric membranes are generally preferred. Asymmetric membranes are they have a kind of thin selective skin supported on a thicker layer with large pores. So, there is a support onto that one, there is a membrane skin is deposited. The support is macroporous, and then skin, that whatever the polymer layer on the support is having a kind of microporous structure. So, once the molecules pass through the membranes, so then they can easily pass through the support. So, because of that one macro structure of the porous the support, porous support, the hydraulic resistance is also less. Several kind of polymers are used for ultrafiltration membranes, such as cellulose acetate, polyacrylonitrile, polysulfone, polyamide, polyimide, polymethyl methacrylate, etc. These kind of solutions, polymers are used for ultrafiltration membranes. Skin thickness and average pore size of ultrafiltration membrane can be varied by changing the casting condition and post treatment, as like if you are doing the phase inversion technique for membrane preparation. So, what are the casting conditions, and then what are the post casting conditions. So, by by playing around with the conditions, one can get a kind of engineering solution to properly control the pore size. So, now we see an example or a picture of a asymmetric membrane, so that to understand what is this asymmetric membrane in general. Asymmetric membranes in general supported on a kind of a porous support. Okay. This porous support also is such a way that its porous structure, though the porous structure is in a macroporous range, at the top of the support, the opening pore structure opening is narrow, but as you pass through as you go through across the cross section of the support, the size of these pores gradually increases like this. Okay. and then on this support we have a kind of a casting of membrane layer which can be acting as a kind of a separating medium here. This polymeric membrane layer would have a kind of a smaller microporous structure, whereas the support is having a kind of macroporous structure. So, once the molecule, whatever the molecule that is permeating or passing through this membrane, that will be easier to pass through, because after that porous structure, the size of the pores are gradually increasing. Okay. So, because of that one also hydraulic resistance would be decreasing for this kind of asymmetric membranes. This is one example of asymmetric membrane. Then ultrafiltration and microfiltration membranes are also prepared from sintered stainless steel or other metals and from porous carbon or alumina as well. Usual methods of preparation gives membranes with fairly large pore varying from 1 to 100 microns. 1 to 100 microns is a very wide pore size distribution. So, in general that is not good for a given application. So, but it is better to have a kind of a pore size distribution narrower. So, for that in general what you do, you can have a kind of partially filling the surface layer with inorganic material, so that to produce asymmetric membranes with controlled pore size. That is one of the technique to control the pore size distribution. Then in general inorganic membranes have a kind of several advantages over organic or polymeric membranes. So, what are those advantages? These inorganic membranes can operate at high temperatures, can have a higher mechanical strength, and then can better withstand chemical cleaning or sterilization treatment of the membrane after the treatment. So, these are the three important advantages of inorganic membrane. Actually polymeric membranes you cannot use at high temperature, because most of the polymers are sensitive to the temperature. If the temperature goes beyond 50-60 degrees centigrade, then a kind of changes in the polymer structure will start taking place. Okay. And then mechanical strength also, if you apply large pressures, then let us say in a pressure driven membrane process, if you apply large pressures, it is possible that polymeric membranes may be getting some kind of cracks, and then even breaking the entire membrane, like that is possible. But if you have a kind of inorganic membranes like carbon membranes etc., that mechanical strength is also very high. Then sometimes in industries, after the separation process is done, it is required to clean the membrane surface, so that it should be ready for the next cycle kind of thing, or next separation process, right. Under such conditions, sometimes you may be cleaning with some kind of chemicals, depending on the nature of the particles that are deposited as a kind of layer on this membrane surface, right. So, obviously when the separation is taking place through the membrane medium, what happens is not necessary that all only permeate is passing through. Some of the particles may also pass through this porous structure, and then some of this porous structure may be blocked. So, cleaning of membrane is required in order to make them clear. So, if you use chemical cleaning, then polymeric membranes may be sensitive to different types of chemicals, and then they even may react. But if you have inorganic membranes like carbon membranes etc., so that such kind of problems will not be there. So, that is indirectly inorganic membranes have a better mechanical, chemical and thermal resistance compared to the organic membranes. Then molecular weight cutoff is one of the way of characterizing the membrane, which gives a kind of a clear idea or a priori information about the performance of the prepared membranes. Like ultrafiltration membranes have a range of pore sizes in the selective layer, and they are often characterized by this molecular weight cutoff based on measurements of rejection coefficient versus molecular weight. What you do, you take some kind of polymer solutions which are having different molecular weights, and then let us say polyethylene glycol, if you can take a polyethylene glycol of different molecular weights like 100, 500, 1000, 10,000 up to 1 lakh molecular weight, something like that, and then you make a solution of this PEG and then at a specified pressure or the pressure at which you wanted to do the separation, you do the separation of this PEG solution, right, and then you calculate the rejection coefficient for each of the PEG solution having different molecular weight. If you plot rejection versus molecular weight of this PEG that you have selected, then you can have a kind of cutoff where you can get 90% or 95% of the rejection. So that will give a kind of a priori information about the membrane characteristics, so that one can decide what kind of application for which this prepared membrane could be suitable. Okay. So molecules larger than the cutoff size will obviously almost completely rejected, but there is a wide range of sizes for which partial rejection also occurs in general. And then rejection coefficient for a given molecular weight varies with several factors. First one is the molecular shape of the polymer that you have taken, then solvent permeation rate, then shear rate near the surface, and extent of membrane fouling. All these kind of things are going to have a kind of effect on the rejection coefficient of this for a given molecular weight solutions. Okay. So now we see a couple of pictures about the molecular weight cutoff. Now here in this first picture, what we can see x-axis molecular weight of PEG. That means these are the different solutions, PEG solutions are prepared, which are PEGs of different molecular weights are taken, like 100, 500, 1000, 10,000, like this, up to 1 lakh molecular weights or even more are available. These material are taken and they are dissolved in a kind of solvent, right, to make a solution. So some ppm of this solution are taken, and then their separation is tried out using the ultrafiltration membranes. 3 different types of ultrafiltration membranes are used. So the pressure was fixed delta P. Okay, it is fixed at one pressure drop. This experiment has been done. So now we can see for each of these 3 different membranes, let us say UM, NM, AM are the 3 different types of membranes. So we can see here the rejection versus molecular weight curves are having a kind of almost similar size, but they are different from each other. And now how to find out this molecular weight cutoff? This is nothing but molecular weight at specified rejection percentage. This specified rejection percent varies. In general, people take 90%, some people also take 95% or 99% also, depending on the degree of separation required. So now here corresponding to 90% rejection, let us say if you take the corresponding molecular weight cutoff, let us say for UM membrane is approximately 8 to 9000. So that means whatever the PEG of molecular weight more than 8 to 9000 are there, they will almost be rejected, or more than 90% of them will be rejected. But if you take a kind of NM membrane, then this molecular weight cutoff is almost like 12 to 13,000. Right. For the other membrane AM, so the molecular weight cutoff corresponding to 90% rejection is approximately about 18,000 or something like that. So you can see for different membranes, different molecular weight cutoffs are there. So further here, this molecular weight cutoff curves are almost similar of nature, but not necessarily they can be like of this shape only. They can be very diffused, they can be very sharp as well. Let us say here in other picture, here we have 2 curves. One is a very sharp curve, and then another one is a very kind of a very diffused curve here. So here now we can see it is taken 0.95 rejection or 95% rejection, right. So that depends actually. Okay, some people take 90%, some people take 95%, some people even take 99% rejection to find out this molecular weight cutoff. That depends on their applications. Okay, now here from the sharp cutoff curve, if you see, the corresponding to 95% rejection, the whatever the molecular weight cutoff is there, approximately 10,000. It is small, right. For the diffuse curve, the corresponding molecular weight cutoff, the molecular weight corresponding to 95% is almost 1 lakh. So, for sharp cutoff, the molecular weight cutoffs in general are a kind of smaller one. For diffuse kind of curves, the molecular cutoff would be in general large. Okay. That means, if you have a sharp cutoff kind of curve, then it is possible that pore structure is a kind of very fine pore structure, and then it can give a kind of better separation for smaller molecule the size of molecules of small size. If you have a kind of diffuse molecular weight cutoff curve, then it is possible that the porous structure is very wide, or the pores are bigger in size, so then separation may not be good enough for small size molecules. Okay, that is those kind of information we get from this molecular weight cutoff. And then according to this molecular weight cutoff, that membrane can be used for a application. Let us say if you have to do a kind of ultrafiltration membrane, then it is better to prepare a membrane where you get the sharp molecular weight cutoff kind of curve. Okay. If you are going for a kind of microfiltration, even if you prepare a membrane which is having a kind of diffuse cutoff kind of curve like shown here, then that is also going to be sufficiently good enough. Okay. Like that, this MWCO is going to be useful. Now, membrane modules. Actually, we have seen a few basics of the membranes only, but in general, lab scales, if you do membrane, this membrane separation process are very slow permeation rates would be there in general. But industrially, the permeation rate has to be sufficiently large, or large quantity of the permeate should be able to collect. So, then you have to give large surface area. So, let us say something like 50 meter square or 100 meter square surface area if you provide, then large quantities can be collected, but we cannot have a such kind of bigger space, bigger equipment in general. So, in order to fulfill such kind of criteria, industrially there are different modules are available, right. Because of these modules, in the lesser space one can have a kind of more surface area, and then more amount of liquid solution can be treated, so that the permeate rate is also sufficiently enough to do that separation by this membrane separation. So, what are those kind of modules that we are going to discuss now? In industrial applications, large surface areas are required, which can be obtained by using tubular modules, flat sheet modules, spiral wound modules, and hollow fiber modules. We see a few details of each of these 4 modules now. In tubular modules, they are in general widely used, especially where required to have a turbulent flow regime, or concentration of high solids content feed, etc. Then these tubular modules are used. So, what are these tubular modules? In these tubular modules, membrane is cast on the inside of a porous support tube. What we have a kind of a porous support tube is there. This tube is having a kind of porous structure, right. In this porous structure tube, what we do, we take this porous structures, and then inside whatever this inside surface of this porous structure is there, that will be casting with the polymer solution if you are preparing a kind of a polymeric membrane like this, right. This inner surface of this porous support tube, that we are casting with a kind of a polymer solution, and this tube is in general housed in a kind of a perforated stainless steel pipes like this, right. And then they are not a kind, they are provisions are there to fix them, they are not kind of loosely packed kind of thing. And then here this structure now have a kind of provision where the fluid comes in here, right, and then separation will take place through this membrane. So, permeate will be collected from the other sides and then retains are collected from the other side like this. So, in tubular modules such kind of tubes, actually it is a supported tube. In the supported hollow kind of tube, inner structure, inner side of the tube, the membrane casting is done, and this support tube is kept in a kind of perforated steel. Now, this is one set. Like this, there are n number of such kind of things would be there, and they are clustered in tubes in series, right, within a stainless steel permeate shroud. Okay. So, then pictorial if you see like this. So, now all of them like these different tubes, these kind of things that you can see, they are such kind of tubes like shown here. They are now kept in a kind of stack kind of thing together, and then separation is done. So, that large amount of fluid can be treated together, and then continuously the permeate is clear liquid can be collected back. Okay. So, tubular membranes are here whatever the tubular modules, whatever the membranes are used, usually 10 to 25 mm inside diameter and up to 1 to 6 meter long, and velocities can be as high as 1 to 5 meter per second, which correspond to the turbulent flow, where Reynolds number is greater than 10,000 in general. Because of that one, good mass transfer would be there. Tubular membranes have the advantages of easy membrane replacement and feasibility of mechanical cleaning, but the main disadvantages are relatively low ratio of surface area to the volume and their high volumetric holdup. So, these are the two problems or disadvantages. If your capacity, required capacity is not very high, then these membranes are these tubular modules are going to be the best one. If you want to have a kind of very high capacity, then it is better to go for other modules, as we are going to discuss now. Next one is flat sheet module. It is qualitatively similar to conventional plate and filter press type, right. So, that is it is somehow similar to conventional filter press in one way or other. So, it consists of series of annular membrane disc of outer diameter 0.3 meters placed on either side of polysulfone support plates. These support plates also provide channels through which permeate can be withdrawn, and then sandwich of membrane and support plate are separated from one another by spacer plates. These plates have central and peripheral holes through which feed liquor is directed over the surface of membranes. So, pictorially if you see, you have a kind of support plate like this, okay, polysulfone support like mentioned here. So, either side of this support we can have a kind of a membrane casting, right, membrane is there, right. This now whatever the solution, feed solution is coming in there, that is passing through here, and then permeate is being collected like this, permeate is being collected, and such kind of n number of membranes are kept in a series like this, and these are separated by the spacers. These spacers are also having a kind of holes in the peripherals as well as in the central, so that the feed can easily pass through, right. So, now when the feed is coming here like this, that will pass through all the different membranes one after other, passing through the spacers as well. So, then at every location we can collect the permeate from each and every membrane stake whatever is there, you can collect the permeate, and then at the end we can have a kind of concentrate. So, single module contains in general 19 meter square of membrane area. Permeate is collected from each membrane pair, so that damaged membranes can easily be identified. However, replacement of membranes require dismantling of whole stack. Like if you can since the permeate is collected from each membrane pair, so what happens, you can keep on observing through any membrane pair, if you are going to get a kind of turbid solutions kind of thing indicating that separation is not taking place. So, then you can understand that that particular membrane pair is damaged. So, but the problem is that while the process is going on, you cannot replace it. You have to stop the process, dismantle the entire setup, and then replace the whatever damaged membrane pair. The next one is the spiral wound module. So, here it consists of several flat membranes separated by turbulence promoting mesh separators and formed into a roll. Edges of membranes are sealed to each other and to a central perforated tube. Thus, produced cylindrical module can be installed within a pressure tube. Process feed enters at one end of the pressure tube and encounters number of narrow parallel feed channels formed between adjacent membrane sheets, as we see like here pictorially. So, what we have here now, we have n number of membranes are there, right, and of course there is a kind of perforated tube at the center is there, perforated tube is there at the center, right. Okay. Onto this tube, this n number of membranes are rolled a kind of rolls, n number of membranes. Okay. So, each of this membrane is also separated by a kind of separator, so that the separators not only separate one membrane from other, but also provide a kind of high flow rate turbulence kind of thing would be generated. And for each of these membrane, there is a kind of provision to come for the feed and then permeate to concentrate to collect from the other end like this. So, when the feed comes in, so this before feed coming in, what we do? So, this setup, this a kind of rolls, different number of membranes separated by the a kind of separator or rolled onto a kind of a porous supported tube as shown is like this, and then this entire set is taken inside a kind of pressure tube, right. Now, from the one side of the pressure tube, when the feed comes, the feed that solution pass through n number of these membrane surfaces or the membrane filter medium, so that separation will take place, and then through the center permeate is collected, whereas the concentrate is collected from the other end. This is what happens in spiral wound modules. Then permeate spirals towards the perforated central tube from where it is collected. This module make better use of space than tubular or flat sheet type modules that we have seen. So, that means we can have a kind of higher capacity operations with these kind of modules. However, they are rather prone to fouling and difficult to clean in general. These type modules are widely used for reverse osmosis and ultrafiltration. In such modules, pre-filtration of the feed solution is recommended, so that to reduce the fouling kind of problems, like pre-filtration of the feed solution, in the sense, let us say the feed solutions is not only containing only fine particles of less than 0.1 or less than 10 micron size, but there are also some kind of particles which are bigger than 10 micron size, something like that. So, then it is better to separate that larger size particles before taking the feed to this kind of spiral wound modules, okay, so that that will avoid fouling kind of thing. The velocity in the feed channels correspond to laminar flow, but however, the flow disturbance caused by the separators whatever is there, that makes the pressure drop and then mass transfer greater than that for a kind of true laminar flow in general whatever we have. Okay. The last module is the hollow fiber module. Here what we have, it consists of bundles of hundreds or thousands of fine fibers which are having the diameter in general 0.1 to 2 mm. They are sealed in a kind of tube. There are fibers which are large number of fibers of such small size, or taken in hundreds or thousands in numbers, and they are packed in a kind of a tube. In general, we will see pictorially as well. For reverse osmosis desalination application, the feed flow is usually around the outside of unsupported fibers. with permeation radially inward will take place, but whereas the other kind of applications, the feed entering and then permeation collection may be reversed as well. Okay. So, fibers cannot withstand such high pressure differences in opposite directions. So, this gives very compact units capable of high pressure operation. However, flow channels are less than 0.1 mm wide and are therefore readily fouled and difficult to clean. Pictorially, if you see, so one single fiber is in general is having this kind of shape. So, this like very enlarged picture is shown here like this. This is a one single fiber which is having a kind of diameter approximately 0.1 to 2 mm, that is not more than 2 mm diameter. So, such kind of fibers, large number of fibers are taken, about a few hundreds or a few thousand, and they are packed in a tube so that to form this hollow fiber module. So, this is a kind of tube in which now these are a kind of a large number of single fibers. The hundreds of such single fibers are taken and then packed in this kind of tube here. So, in RO operations what happens, the feed comes in here like this and then permeation is taken something like this. Okay. But in some applications what happens, like here the feed may be coming through the center here and then whatever the permeate is collected from the other side here, something like that. That is also possible. Okay. So, for other mode of separation, the flow is usually reversed so that the feed passes down the center of fibers, giving better controlled laminar flow and easier cleaning of this module. This limits the operational pressure to less than 0.2 mega Newton per meter square, that is in the range of microfiltration and ultrafiltration. Okay. Finally, the references. Now, the references for this particular lecture, most of the lecture is prepared from this book, Unit Operations of Chemical Engineering by McCabe, Smith and Harriet. Other reference books are Ortega Rivas as well, and then this membrane modules etc., all those things are discussed from this book, Colson and Richardson's Chemical Engineering, second volume by Richardson and Harker. So, this is a very good book for a kind of membrane modules. Other references are Transport Processes and Unit Operations by C.J. Giancopoulos, Unit Operations by Brown et al., Introduction to Chemical Engineering by Badger and Banchero. Thank you.